Hey everybody, welcome back to the Badgerland Birding Podcast, bringing you birding news and stories from the Badger State and beyond. Today I'm here with Ryan and we're talking about a pelagic trip that I got to do with our friend Nathaniel out of North Carolina last weekend, I believe it was. So it was definitely an experience doing an East Coast one. We've done the West one out of Westport, which I really liked, and this one was, a winter one, so it was a whole new world.
Yeah, first I'll tell everyone why I have glasses on. So well, what was it? Probably like a month ago, we were in Florida and I woke up and my eyes started to feel a little bit blurry. So I didn't think much of it. It went away after a couple minutes every day. And then later on, I started getting blurry vision during the regular part of the day. And then it started to progress to getting blurry more and more often. So I would just be seeing everything clear, and then all of a sudden the two pictures that your eyes make would kind of come together in a weird way, so I couldn't really see what was going on. So it turns out that I have astigmatism and need glasses to give my eyes a break so that they don't get strained. So I'm wearing the sunglasses to try to keep some light out right now.
Perfect time to have a Sasquatch sighting, though.
It's
Just throwing
probably
it out
when it would
there.
happen. Yeah, my camera's not got full battery either, so
Yeah, it's primed. You're primed for a
it's
Squatch
perfect.
encounter.
So yeah, that's why I have the glasses on, but I've been not asking Derek much about his trip so that this could be the first time that I hear about it, although I've heard about some of the more funny aspects of it already. I'm not that crazy about pelagics. You're crazy about pelagics.
Yeah, with this one, it was tough because we signed up for two trips. They were supposed to do two trips back to back. So it was like a Saturday, Sunday, and then there was a weather date for Monday. So it's like, okay, one of the dates is bad, Monday's the backup date. So, you plan all the stuff like, okay, we'll leave, Thursday. So, or, yeah, we'll leave. I think we left Friday. So we'll get to the area then, and then we'll leave Tuesday, and you have it all planned out. And one tough thing is they leave out of two different marinas depending on certain factors. And they're an hour and a half apart. So they were like,
Oh.
don't book your hotel until it's closer to the date because you could have to drive an hour and a half. So there's a lot of like trying to figure out, okay, like what marina are we going to? Like, is the weather good enough to go out? Like a lot of variables that you have to take into account on the trip. So it's a lot of things that are up in the air. So when you actually get a chance to go out, you're like, okay, we're actually going. Like we did all the stuff to finally leave and go out on the water. So that was a lot of kind of planning. And then it just so happened the second trip, basically they already knew. They said the first trip looks good. The second one, weather looks bad the next 2 days. So we're thinking maybe Tuesday. And we had already made our plans. So I was like, okay, we could maybe change our flight and leave a little later, like, stay an extra day to do that other trip. And it was like, okay, it'll be like $35 more to change the flights. And then they were like, no, it's not happening. And then they were like, yeah, it is happening. And then when I looked to change, it was like $144 change for the flights. So I was like, well, we can't do that. So we ended up only doing the one trip.
That's really annoying that
Yeah,
that happened.
it's
And it
tough.
feels like there's
There's
nothing you can do because they're not going to give you, hey, we'll pay that extra $100 for that flight switch.
right. They're supposed to pay back the trip, we didn't go on, which I haven't talked to them about yet, but
Well, I'm sure
that's
you
the
would have rather
idea.
just gone on the trip.
Yeah. Especially when you plan, because we planned it around those pelagic trips. So it wasn't like we had all this other stuff that we wanted to do. We ended up doing a bunch of other stuff because we had the extra time. Um, but yeah, it's tough planning all that stuff.
Yeah, what do you like about pelagic trips so much?
I like having the chance to see things that are either difficult to see from shore or you have no chance of seeing. So it kind of feels like birding in another country in a way. Where you're like, I'm gonna have a chance to see all these species that I wouldn't normally get the chance to. And it kind of feels like buying a lottery ticket or opening up a pack of like Pokemon cards, where you're like, I know there could be good stuff in here, but there could also be nothing.
What
So
I
it's a bit of
don't
a
like
gamble.
about it is that one of the things that I really do like about birding is formulating a plan and then being able to go make sure your plan comes to fruition to the best of your ability. And it feels like the randomness of a pelagic is what I don't like
Hmm.
because you can have a list of species that you want to see, but it's really not in your power or control at all whether you see them. It's just kind of happenstance, and if they're around, will someone get eyes on it and call it out? And if it is seen, will you be able to even get a look at it that's remotely close to what you want? Because a lot of times that stuff is pretty far out there. It's not always right in by the boat.
Yeah, definitely. And like there was an instance on this trip. Well, I'll like take it from the beginning.
Take it from the top. Let's
Yeah, take it from the top.
take it from the flight down. How was the flight down? Where'd you go on your layover? Was there a layover?
So honestly, our flights, I thought everything went really smoothly. We were in Atlanta for both. So we went to Atlanta, then we flew to Raleigh, Durham, got a rental car. Nathaniel needed a red cockaded woodpecker for a lifer, so instead of just going straight east, we went southwest and way out of our way,
So you
like
went
an
the
hour and a
complete
half.
opposite direction.
Yes, so we could find him his lifer red cockaded woodpecker. And we went to it's I don't know the exact right name to pronounce, but it's like Weymouth Woods, something like that. But it was seemed like the pristine best red cockaded woodpecker place in the state. And it was really cool
Wait,
habitat
was
and
this North Carolina or South
North
Carolina?
Carolina.
Okay.
And what I liked about it was they had feeders and like the visitor center was really nice and people were just there doing regular activities. They like had their dog and stuff and people were running and working out. Not like other red cockaded woodpecker spots. We were just like in the middle of nowhere in a pine forest. This one seemed
Right.
very much like, this was a place people just went to hang out and there just also happened to be red cockaded woodpeckers there. Or they were so used to it, they're just like, oh yeah, there's red cockaded woodpeckers here.
Really?
Yeah, but it actually took us a long time to find them. So we like walked
Did you think it
around.
would be quicker? Did you,
I did. I
just
thought
by
it
the
would be
layout
much
and everything,
quicker.
did you expect it to just be here's the trees they're usually near?
Oh, they said anywhere around the visitor center you could find them. So like you
Huh.
could just be standing outside the visitor center and they could be around.
That sounds
Um,
cool.
but we spent a lot of time looking at the brown-headed nuthatches because they were coming into the feeders too, which
That's
isn't
cool.
something I normally see. So we were looking at them. There were towhees, bluebirds. We found a blue-headed vireo hanging out there. So like a lot of stuff. And then we ended up taking one of the like service roads and eventually we tracked him down and saw him.
Was it just one or was it a little family group?
Well, there were two hanging out.
Oh, okay. Male,
That was pretty
female?
neat. I think the both that I saw looked like females. I didn't see the red
Okay.
cockade on either of them.
Yeah, red-cockaded woodpeckers always seem like they're an adventure because we just did that in Florida, of
There was no
course.
water though, which was weird.
There's
I'm used
usually
to there
supposed to
being
be a
water.
flooded road or something, and when we were in Florida, we had to go around this flooded part of the trail. That felt like an odd red-cockaded woodpecker place though, because we saw marked trees. I didn't see any holes, so I don't know where exactly they were roosting.
I mean, the holes aren't very big, so even if it's just on the other side of the tree and at the top, it's hard to see.
I always find too, they don't really move like regular woodpeckers. They move very quickly from what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah, they're very nimble.
Yeah,
Very
very
cool though.
nimble.
Love the white cheek patch.
So you fly in, you go the complete opposite direction of where you're supposed to be going to get
Yep.
red-cockaded woodpeckers. Is that the end of the first day there?
No, because we had to drive like 4 hours to get to our hotel, which was in Kitty Hawk. So that's
Oh,
like they call that area the Outer Banks of North Carolina. There was a
Outer
TV
Banks.
show, yeah, some show. It was like a not like a historical show or anything. That was like a drama or something. But we went there, and the weird feeling was it was very touristy vibes, like South Padre Island vibes with t-shirt shops and ice cream shops, but it felt like very out of season because it more or less
Because of Outer
was.
Banks?
No, just because it's not summer. Like everything there is primed for tourism in summer, and when you're there in the
Oh,
winter, it
okay.
feels kind of like it's not like abandoned, but it's just a slower pace than you
I
feel
thought you
like.
meant because of Outer Banks, people were wanting to come visit there and buy t-shirts.
No, they actually filmed Outer Banks in South Carolina, we learned too.
Well,
So
that's just
I
deceptive.
was like, it'd be cool if there were some North Carolina landmarks, but that's apparently what they did. So we had to drive like 4 hours to get to Kitty Hawk, which is where the Wright brothers had their like first flight, which we'll get to later. So we were staying there, woke up really early, had trouble finding exactly where we were supposed to go in the marina, but eventually we found somebody else who kind of knew where to go. Get on the boat while it's still dark. They made it sound like they had some crazy weather last time they did a pelagic, so they made it seem like it was going to be much better this time.
Wait, what do you mean? Were
Like they
there
made a comment
harrowing
like
stories?
should be much better than it was on our last trip. Let me tell you. Like I don't
We
know what it
lost a couple
was.
people on that last
I
one.
don't know what it was like the last one, but they made it sound like this one was going to be much smoother.
Well,
And
remember the
so,
West Coast pelagic one when they were talking about how they had somewhat recently run over a ocean sunfish that
yeah,
caused damage to the boat?
yeah, you don't want to do that for
No,
either party involved.
no.
But we start going out. I feel like a lot of people started in the cabin, which I was kind of like,
They knew something you didn't.
I don't want to be in the cabin because I don't want to get seasick or anything. And so Nathaniel took two of the Bonine tablets, the seasickness medication. I took one, like as a precaution, because it's supposed to make you tired and stuff. And we start going out. I'm looking for like razor bills, which would be a lifer that are not supposed to be too far out. And we're trying to see stuff as we go. So there's like surf scoter we picked out. There's some pintails. It's still really dark and it's really cold because we're going pretty quickly and it's February. So there's just like cold air coming at you. And so me and Nathaniel are standing there and I hear something drop and then I hear something skid and I look back and I don't see anything there. And I'm like, what was that? And Nathaniel just goes, my glasses. And so they had fallen off his head, blew across the bottom and went out one of the holes in the side of the ship where the water is supposed to go out. And let me tell you, those holes were a menace the entire day because not only did that happen, I was watching like the side of the boat and somebody's juice bottle tipped over and it just rolled right out the hole
Uh,
just into the ocean. I'm just like, geez. I was
so
like so
imagine if you dropped
concerned.
something really, really valuable.
Well, think about your phone. Like people had their
Yeah,
phone
your
out. All
phone, your
it could
wallet.
happen so quick.
I mean, glasses, let me tell you, are not that cheap.
And, he told me apparently he needed new glasses anyways, but it should be said that when he did a West Coast Pelagic, he lost his lens cap in the ocean. So we decided he just has to offer up something to the ocean beforehand. Like he should pick something like, here you go, just take it.
These are my shoes. Take them. So could he see at all then?
It seemed like he was fine. It didn't seem like it
He was
really
actually
impaired him
better.
much.
Better
So I
than
don't know.
usual.
Yeah, but I wasn't sure what the noise was, and then we found out real quick what it
How
was.
big was this boat compared to the Westport one?
It felt like it was smaller. I don't know if it actually was though.
Because in the Westport one, nobody was in the cabin to start, and the cabin wasn't even that big, so I don't think everybody could have even really gone in there.
Yeah, the cabin in this boat was different layout. There were like seats, like almost like bus seat style, you know. It went around like the whole thing and then you put your gear under that. So the Westport one that had like basically like bench like dining kind of
It,
looking
well, it looked
stuff.
like a diner.
Yeah, this one was more just like kind of open seating in there.
Huh.
And so eventually, as the sun started to come out, we started to see some gannets, which was really cool. So I was a fan of seeing the northern gannets. And then we did see some flocks of razorbills flying. Razorbill, we never really got knockout views of them like right next to the boat. It was always like the flocks were moving. It was still cool to see, but I always want that experience of being really close to the new species. And then the spray was really bad. So basically, you could only be on one side of the boat at a time. So the captain would be like, "Yeah, nobody should go on, the port side. Everybody to the starboard side." So we'd all be packed on the one side. And we were still getting sprayed, just the other side was getting sprayed even worse. And what made that even worse than it was is there was an upper deck on the boat, and the salt water would go on the upper deck, and then it would cycle down the rim and drip on all the people that were on the dry side.
So
So
it
you
got
just,
up enough to get the upper deck of the boat?
yeah. So like the boat's going to the right. The spray is hitting the right and hitting like the upper deck and everything. And then it's going to the left side and dripping on everybody who's
Oh,
also getting
jeez.
spray. So like I would have my camera and there's just water dripping down on you. And it's salt water, which is like the worst thing for your camera gear. So we tried to move up to get out of it. And then the captain's like, I need you guys to move down because like the weight distribution is better if there's more weight in the back. So then we had to go back into like the drip area. But it was way more spray than like the Westport trip.
Why do you think that was? Is that
I don't
because
know. I
the
feel like they
boat
could have
layout or the
designed it.
ocean?
I feel like they could have designed it to not drip on you. So I
So
don't
you're
know if
saying it was
that
the boat layout.
I don't know. I'm not sure if that had ever been brought up or like if it was an anomaly just for our trip, but it seems like the weather was much bad on the other one. So I don't know what was going on with that.
You said it was much bad.
I don't know, much worse, for the
It
other trip.
was it was much bad.
Yeah. Uh so that was like the conditions there. You feel like you're in survival mode. You're like, I'm trying not to lose my camera over the side or tip over. And then you're like, but also let me take a picture of this bird. So it was
Yeah.
very much switching. And kind of on that, they were like, oh, nobody go on the port side. And then like, oh, Manx Shearwater on the port side. So I
Oh,
got up and went over there. And by the time I was over there, like I think it was out of view. So like only a couple people got to see that. And that was the only one on the entire trip.
really?
Yeah.
Is that
So
a species that was expected there?
yeah. Basically it seemed like they have at least one every trip in the winter. And
They got one.
there's shearwater that's supposed to be closer inshore. So like it's not you don't necessarily need to go out crazy. Like people see them from shore sometimes. So that was disappointing.
Tell
But
me this, what were kind of the big targets going out? Because when we did the Westport one, it was black-footed albatross, and then some of the
mhm.
other albatross species were kind of some of the bigger ones. What were the ones that everyone really wanted to see or that Pelagic's known for?
Yeah, well, it was complicated because on their website they have a checklist of species that you can see during the different seasons, but they just have a check mark like if they've ever seen it. So I feel like we had higher expectations for things we could see. But the big ones on the winter pelagic is like Atlantic puffin, dove key, that kind of stuff. Like little gull, Manx shearwater. I think they had, what else did they have? Jaegers, they sometimes get out there. And so as we did get a little further along, we did get nice views of dove key, which was cool because that's kind of a specialty of the trip. And they're like, I'm pretty sure they're the smallest alcid. Just adorable little like black and white elongated grapefruit alcid just hanging out there.
Did they get close to the boat?
It was pretty close. Like the views we had of the dove keys were pretty good, and we had a lot of them too. So that was a highlight for everybody, I'm pretty sure, seeing the dove keys. And then we had Atlantic puffin too. So we kept stopping to try to find, like, they would see a puffin and we'd stop, and then we wouldn't be able to relocate it. And then later we eventually got some that were a little bit closer, but they look a lot different because it kind of looks like they got a black eye. Like they're very dark by the face. The bill is like more dark colored, so it's not that striking puffin that you would see on like the breeding colonies.
Yeah.
But this is what they're doing this time of year is they're just kind of in the open ocean
Which is
hanging
kind of
out.
funny to think about. I always find that strange with birds because they're just floating out there, and you think about all the stuff that is in the ocean that scares us as humans, like sharks, and they're just floating out there.
They're like, I love it here. It's great.
Yeah, which is strange because it seems like there's a lot of perils that could get you out on the ocean.
Yeah. But it took us a while to get to the continental shelf. So that's that area where the water drops off really deep. And it was felt significantly warmer there. There was less spray. Like everything started to dry off. You're like,
This
this is
place
the
is
paradise.
great.
This is what we came to see. And once we got to that area, it was absolutely dead. There was
Oh,
nothing. So I was just like, I believe I turned to somebody on the trip. I was like, you will have birds on your pelagic birding trip, won't you? Because it just felt like there was a big dead zone.
and that area is supposed to generally be good, right? Because a lot of food congregates there, so birds are supposed to be in that area.
You start seeing the sargassum weed, and then those are areas where there's like upwelling, so it's supposed to drive the marine food chain. So it's kind of like everything's supposed to kind of take place there. And we did find it. It just took a little while. So we got out a little. I don't know if it was further. We went north or south more, but we did start running into more birds. So we saw more dove keys, more puffins. We were looking for like little gull, shearwaters, skuas out in that area. But we would see the occasional Bonaparte's gull, and they did start chumming with fish too. So they had like just tons of chopped up dead fish that they were flicking out like the back. So you got some herring gulls following there, some Bonaparte's gulls. But in that continental shelf area, that's kind of like, your eyes are peeled for you could really see anything out here. Like this is the best chance of getting some crazy, crazy species. And I felt like we just didn't have that on our trip. So like we started heading back. And at that point, I'm like, okay, like, that's probably most of what we were gonna see. I was still looking for a Manx or like a little gull
What
and
would be an example of some wild thing that you would see there?
yellow-nosed albatross.
What was that?
Yellow-nosed
Oh, okay.
albatross. Yeah, like just wild things that like who knows? Because who
What
knows
kind of
what's hanging
skewers
out
do they
there?
usually have out there?
I think great skewer was a
Oh, okay.
possibility. At certain times of year, I think they get South Polar, but I don't think that'd be this time.
It's the monster of the ocean.
We did have one common murre though, which there was
Okay.
a West Coast birder out there, and he's like, "We're stopping for a common murre." I was like, "Is this your nightmare?" Which is kind of funny because like we saw so many on the Westport trip,
Yeah.
but it was cool to see, in its natural habitat on the East Coast. But we started going back, so went in the cabin and like Nathaniel was passed out. So I was like, well, but we did have,
Nathaniel has so many problems anytime we go anywhere.
yeah, well, what can you say?
He gets
He's working it
sick.
out.
So on the Texas trip this last time, he got sick and was pretty much out of commission the entire time. He lost his glasses this time and then was passed out. He got sick
Yeah,
the last time you went to Texas with him as well.
yeah, there was one more surprise though. Before we got all the way out of the shelf area, we did have a red phalarope. So that
Okay.
was that was a lifer for
Just
me. It
one?
was yeah, I think the captain saw one fly by, but then we stopped for one on the water, and it was the case where it was on the other side, so I had to like go over carefully. But I was able to see it, get some really bad pictures before it
Very
took off.
good.
And I remember going into the cabin and be like, Nathaniel, do you need red phalarope for a lifer? And he like picks his head up and just goes, no. I'm like, okay. And then I went back out.
I'm picturing later, you go, man, it's good that I got that red phthalo rope. And he's like, there was a red phthalo rope?
The,
I
I'm,
need that
I'm,
for a lifer.
Yeah, I made sure if we saw something new that he would at least have the chance to go see it. If it was a lifer, I don't know if he was in shape to, to get up and get it anyways.
Man,
Um, but probably one of the coolest things is as we got closer to shore, I was still looking for Manx shearwaters on the way in, but the gannets really picked up the chum line, and so they would just circle the boat and then they do their plunge dive in the back.
that
So
is
like
cool.
everyone had a lot of fun watching them and taking pictures and videos, and it was really tough to take any kind of video, but yeah, it was just really cool to see them and have that experience with them. And the adults were kind of the main grouping. Like most were in their adult plumage, but there were some juveniles which looked really cool, kind of having the patchy brown coming into their adult plumage.
Yeah.
And then we had a gull that was kind of an interesting looking gull. I think it is a first year Thayer's type Iceland. I talked with Amar, the gull expert, about it, and that's what he thought too. So, but there was talk about like, could it be like a young slatyback gull? But I think it was a Thayer's type Iceland.
Trying to get that retroactive big rarity.
Yeah, I don't. It just looked more like a Thayer's type, but gulls are confusing. So I sent Amar a bunch of pictures. Like I sent him like three really nice pictures, and he's like, I don't know if we can tell from these pictures. And then I sent him somebody else's pictures that are even closer up. I'm like, what about these? He's like, I don't know if we can tell from these pictures. I'm like, Amar, what picture would it take for us to be able to ID this bird? Because I have a ton of, I'm like, would anything make us be able to ID it? And eventually he's like, I saw some other pictures. I think it's a Thayer's type. I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
I'm still not sure what the indicator was that made him change
It's
his
fun. It would
mind.
be funny if there was one that was really blurry but had some sort of diagnostic thing about like the wing angle or primary projection or something. And he's just like, yeah, I could tell on that one.
Well,
It
I'm
was a
like,
dead ringer.
Amar, if I caught the bird and brought it to you, would you be able to tell me what it is? Like some birds just feel like no matter how much evidence you have, they're not gonna come up with a positive ID or consensus, I guess.
Yeah. Well, did you see any blackback gulls out there of any kind? Usually
Yeah,
the
there
Atlantic
were a
coast
bunch
is
of
very good
lesser
for great
blackbacks,
blackback.
occasional great blackback.
Great blackback
Um,
are actually pretty far north usually that they're in greater numbers. So if you go to like Massachusetts, you can get a ton of them. They're not usually much for the southern part of the country.
yeah, it was mostly lesser. We had the occasional great. But we ended up doing a decent amount of like there was crazy winds the next couple days. So we did a bunch of tourist stuff one day. So we went to like the aquarium out there. And then we went to see the like Roanoke Island Memorial for the lost colony of Roanoke, which they
What's
really
that
didn't.
place like now?
Well, the where we left the port was actually on Roanoke Island. And it's very much feels like there's not really a ton dedicated to like the history of it.
Interesting.
Yeah, but you can see it in the thing way things are named. And I believe it's the area where the first English child was born too, named Virginia Dare, I think. So there's things named after that on the island,
Huh.
after that child's
Is
name.
the
So
island pretty built up though?
I mean, it's tour. It's not crazy, but there's established buildings and companies on it and stuff.
Is it spooky at all?
Not really.
Okay.
It was kind of cool. But the thing that I liked a lot was visiting the Kitty Hawk Wright Brothers Memorial because they have like stones that show like where the first flight was from. Because they did a couple flights before they actually got like in the air. So like here's where the first flight started and here's where it ended. And then they
Oh,
progressively are getting
how
longer.
long was it?
Pretty long. I don't remember the exact distance, but then they have like an even bigger memorial that's like up on a hill. So there's a lot to see in that area. And then we ate at a place called the Black Pelican, and they had a sign that was like the Wright brothers ate here. Like the Wright brothers were here because it used to be a post office, and that's where they sent their first message saying they
So
broke.
wait, they ate at a post office?
No, it was, I think the sign was like they were here. But then Guy Fieri had a sign that said he ate there, or
Oh,
something like
okay.
that. It's a lot of
Who were
history
you
in
more
Black
excited about
Pelican.
being there, Guy Fieri or the Wright brothers?
I don't know what Guy Fieri got, so probably the Wright brothers.
Well, do you know what they got?
Their message sent.
Oh, maybe Guy did the same thing.
Maybe. I don't know.
It's
But we
like it was a
did,
post office until about 12 months ago.
yeah. But when we were done with our trip, they were like, they said that that was probably one of the best trips they'd had all season.
Really?
And yeah, so Nathaniel and I were kind of like, I thought we'd have more diversity, and they were like, this is one of the best ones we had. So it sounds like
Interesting.
May is the time where there's the most diverse stuff there. But I don't think you would get like puffin or dovekie because
Huh.
those are more winter specialties.
So you kind of have to go back multiple times, probably different times of the year to really get a good plethora of bird species there.
Yeah, and I think that's probably true with any pelagic, but like they ended up running that trip on Tuesday that we couldn't go on, and they had Manx shearwater, they had little gull that time, and I think they had a Jaeger.
Oh,
So I did feel like our trip didn't really have as much diversity for
yeah.
whatever
I mean, the
reason.
Westport one that we went on, which was, what was that, July?
Something like that.
June or July, had pretty good diversity in birds because
And
we had,
they're right away because the continental shelf is a lot closer. So it's
yeah,
just
I
like
mean, we got
bam,
South Florida
birds.
skua, we
Yeah.
got the different types of shearwaters, the sooty and the pink-footed, short-billed,
Yeah, and we were
even
able to chum and
short-tailed shearwater.
bring the stuff in close, which we really didn't have that opportunity on this trip.
So is there no general albatross species out there that you can see?
I mean, I don't think regularly.
Okay, I don't know anything about the seabird life out in the Atlantic coast. How about non-bird species of animals? Did you have
We
anything
had
cool?
a couple ocean sunfish. Definitely
Okay.
didn't get to see them as well as we did on the Westport trip, but they you could see their fins like sticking out of the water. But we didn't
Yeah.
have any marine mammals
Really? No
out on
whales?
the trip. I think actually there was a dolphin, bottlenose, I think, but no whales. It just seemed kind of quiet overall, in
So
my
was it kind of a
opinion.
bummer?
Um, I feel like because we saw those checklists that had like all the species, our expectations were higher, probably than like is regular for a trip. So I think with that in mind, we were kind of like, I was hoping to see like a little bit more, and I wasn't expecting the conditions to feel so rough with like all the spray and trying to keep my camera gear safe and all that. So it was just different. I feel like if you came back in May and saw like, black cap petrel and Corey shearwater and all that stuff, it might be different. But I'd be curious to see what the
Yeah.
ocean is like then, and the tourist activity, I'm sure, is higher too.
I'm sure the tourist activity kicks up for sure along the coasts. Pretty much anytime we've gone to any coastal town, if you go in season, it's very busy, and if you go out of season, it does have that ghost town liminal space vibe where you can tell there's usually a lot of action going on there, but it's that weird time when it's off.
Yeah. We got to check out this place called Pea Island too, which is a national wildlife refuge. known for swan and duck migration. So we were able to find a tundra swan there, and that was place was super windy. Like it was
Oh,
to the point where we were like, should we even go walk on this trail because
really?
it's ridiculously
Like you were worried about what?
just like it just wasn't fun. Like you were out,
Oh.
man. The wind was just like against you and
So what was the
um
goal there? Just to see what it was like?
well, it's we try to hit all the popular spots or places people might want to go. So we just wanted to kind of have the experience of what it was like being there, which I feel like we did get a little bit, and we got to see some species out there, which was cool. So we try to hit all the hot spots of a region. And then on one of the other days, we went up to Virginia, which was nice to check another state off the list for making videos. And we went to Back Bay National Wildlife Refuge, which kind of had a similar vibe as far as species because we saw some swans. Really nice views of tricolored heron and great blue heron, like right in your face views. And then we popped up to a place called Rudy Inlet where there were a couple common eiders hanging out. So that was like
Commoners are neat.
eider. We had the eiders. There were a bunch of scoters that were pretty close up, and that's where there was a great blackback gull hanging out. Pigeons up close, right in your face. So that was neat. And then we had another like 4 hour drive back
Oh,
towards
jeez.
Raleigh. And then we had to leave really early in the morning. So it was kind of a whirlwind trip with interesting weather conditions and cool pelagic experience. I would be interested in going on one a different time of year to see how it kind of stacked up, though.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think I would have liked it.
I think you would have hated it, except the gannets. I feel like you probably would have liked a lot.
That's the one thing I would have been. Again, it's
Well, I think you would have liked seeing the birds, but I feel like the experience as, it's not like you're out on a cruise or anything. Like
yeah.
you're braving the elements like the with the water dripping down, like my pants got pretty wet. So like you're just sitting in water, you're trying to make sure your camera doesn't get a bunch of water in it or something flies out of the boat and you're trying to not get seasick while you're also trying to document the thing.
The
So
way you're describing it too makes the Westport one sound incredibly luxurious that we were on. And it was chilly during a lot of that trip too, and that was in the middle of summer. So I can
yeah.
only imagine what you were dealing with on this one.
Yeah, I don't know why the spray seemed so much worse on ours. I don't know if the boats, I think it's because we had to go faster to get out further. So I
Oh,
think you're
okay, that
going
could
at a
be.
faster speed, so that's going to provide more spray because really is you're fighting where that continental shelf is. And I think that's one of the benefits. We weren't on Hatteras, we were at a place further north. Um, but the quicker you can get there, the more time you can have with those prime spots. And I think that's a benefit of the West Coast is it's like right there.
Yeah. I mean, a pelagic is generally pretty much all day, going from
It was
before
10
sun
hours
up.
we were out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long time to be out on a boat.
Yeah, and we just passed out when we got back to the it was
Well,
like
Nathaniel
7.
passed out before the
He
hotel.
did. He did. And there's a video that I just finished about the whole thing so you can check it out. I don't know if it'll be out. I think it'll probably be out the Wednesday after this episode comes out so you can look forward to checking it out. There's a clip of him where I'm like, "Yeah, you got some sleep?" He's like, "Yeah, some unwanted sleep."
Some unwanted sleep.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was your favorite part of the whole trip? Was it the actual pelagic? Was it some other place you went? Was it
Um
eating at a place Guy Fieri ate at?
I mean, I think I actually really liked our day where we explored Virginia because the weather it was a little nicer that day and it was sunny and we kind of got a chance to go out and explore like places we hadn't been. I feel like the weather was probably nicest either that or the first day. And I'd probably say the seeing like the puffins and stuff was my favorite thing. Because if you take that away, I'd be like, why did we even go? That was the thing the trip was really built around.
So lifers for you were puffin, razorbill, and then red phalarope
And Dovekie.
and dovekie. Okay, so you
Yeah.
got some of the little alcids pretty much.
Yeah. And then we did go to this place called Jeanette's Pier, where it's a big pier that takes you out into the water. And sometimes people see, seabirds from there, like Manx and stuff. And there were gannets and things, horned grebe. We had a long-tailed duck pretty close, but it was still really windy that day. And it was funny because we would run into other birders who were on the pelagic. Like when we were out at the aquarium, we ran into some of the birders from the trip. So it is funny that, you encounter these people at multiple places because you all kind of know where the hot spots are, like the places that might be
Like the
good.
aquarium.
Yeah.
How was the aquarium?
The aquarium was cool. It was like National Whale Day or something. So that
Oh,
people were talking about whales and they were giving out whale stickers and things. It
you
was
got a
rainy
whale
that
sticker?
day. Yeah.
That's cool.
But that day it was rainy, and so that's why we were doing a lot of that stuff. The weather it really didn't cooperate too much while we were there. It was either windy or rainy.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that really puts a damper on trying to go birding than the weather. We experienced that in Florida recently as well when we went down there and it was really cold for Florida and really rainy and it just makes the birds sit down more too. The birds aren't always active and then it just makes it more miserable to be out there. And then just doing anything when it's wet and cold is not fun.
Yeah. And I feel like it's been a lot of that way lately. Even other people, they're like, I think they just had like the Whooping Crane Festival in Port Aransas, and I think the weather was bad for that too. Feels like the weather's always bad for these events
Yeah.
lately.
Yeah, definitely. In Texas when we've been down there before it rains too.
Yeah, one thing I would be curious about, and I thought about doing this, was just putting a picture of a boat, like a pelagic boat, and just being like, okay, you're on a pelagic, where are you sitting? Like, where's the best place to be? Because I like kind of being up by the front because you can see more of the view of what's coming on either side. But I could also see why being in the back would be good. I feel like being on the side, you're so limited because
I
you're
was
really only
told
seeing
that on
one
the
side.
East Coast pelagics you should go in the back.
I
That's what I was
mean,
told.
yeah, I feel like either the back or the front.
I think the front you get more spray.
Well, yeah, but if it's not too bad. I mean, on Westport, we could be up in the front. It wasn't bad
Yeah,
at all.
that's what was interesting is the Westport one, it definitely felt like being in the front was the best. I think it depends what kind of spotter you have too, because we had a really good spotter at the front of the boat, and it seems like you could end up with a spotter that maybe isn't as experienced or leads you astray.
Oh, maybe. I feel like our spotters were constantly looking for stuff. It just felt like there wasn't
They were looking,
as
there was
much
just
to see.
nothing to find.
But I do think, well, in the back is where all the dead fish were and the fumes from the boat. So maybe that's why I like the front a
It could
little bit
be.
more, being away from all the fumes.
Yeah, so how soon do you want to do another pelagic?
I mean, I would do one tomorrow if it was an
Oh, okay.
option.
I see.
I'd like to do like all of them and just compare them, see what's the same and different. It feels like it really varies how they're run.
How many are there?
I'm sure there's tons, like in other countries too. They do them off the coast. I feel like what's weird about it is you could put one together yourself basically if you just
Yeah.
hired a boat captain. You're like, hey, could you take me and these seven people out, and you'd pay the boat captain and
It'd be funny if
set
you
it up
start
like
calling it
that.
like the Derek Sallmann pelagic. If people are like, yeah, I've been to the Westport one, been to Hatteras, did the Derek Sallmann pelagic.
But you have these companies that kind of get known, they have a reputation for their trips out there, and they kind of become the standard. Like, oh, you got to do the Westboro one. The one we did was seabirding, was what it was called. Got to do the one out of Hatteras. You got to do Half Moon Bay or whatever. They
Would
all
you say
kind
it
of,
was actually north of Hatteras?
yeah, because there's the two harbors that you could go
Oh,
off of.
okay.
So
I get what you're saying.
we ended up going off the north one that's on Roanoke Island.
And that's based on weather?
I think so, yeah.
So would you have gotten there faster to the continental shelf if you actually left from Hatteras instead of Roanoke?
I don't know for sure, but I think so.
Okay.
So I
So
don't.
that could have been part of it.
I'm sure it all depends on they look at the weather beforehand and decide what they can or can't do.
I mean, we were talking to people about the pelagics that they do on Lake Michigan and how variable those are from day to day. So I can only imagine that the ocean is the same way, where it just depends what's moving through and depends what you run into. And I bet if you did an hour south, you'd get drastically different things.
Yeah, and who really knows what's on Lake Michigan with some of the stuff that they've seen out there lately. But one thing I did like about it was just kind of meeting everybody and, being able to talk to them. It's not really the ideal conditions to chat because it's loud and windy. And, if you take your phone out, it might go out the back of the boat. But it was cool to meet people from different places and hear about their experiences and what they wanted to see. There was a lady who really wanted close-up views of a dove key, which we got. So I was like, how'd you like those dove key views? She's like, they were amazing.
My
And
life is complete now.
yeah, her camera broke on the trip. I
Wow.
think the motor was going and it eventually just kind of quit at that point.
Oh, jeez.
It was, you know, like a super zoom camera, and she's like, it had been through a lot. Like,
Sounds like a doomed trip for a
it
lot of
was
people.
tough, tough. Nathaniel's glasses didn't make it.
We got to get him something where he can put his glasses on that goes like around his neck.
Yeah, he does need one of those. He told me they got pulled off his face because he like went to adjust them.
I don't know.
I don't know. He's getting new glasses though, and so
Me
are
and him
you.
both. Yeah.
Yeah, you can be
I'm
glasses
hoping
buddies.
I'm hoping that it just increases my eyesight and ability to spot birds.
I would hope so.
I hope so too.
Would you do another pelagic?
I would do another pelagic. I mean, the reason I didn't do this one was because I just missed so much work already that I couldn't really get away with missing more work for this. And I would rather save the times that I'm missing and taking off for things that are a little more grandiose, like going to new places to explore. So, yeah, that's kind of why I didn't do this one. It was just I didn't have enough time. If I had unlimited time, I would have said, yeah, let's do it.
It definitely feels like the West Coast is more built for pelagics, just with how many there are out there. I think seabirding's like the main one on the East Coast. And
I have no idea how many there are out west. I just
I
know
don't
there's one
think
that
they
comes out
really
of San Diego, I think, or Los Angeles area or something like that.
I think
I didn't think there
Monterey
was a
Bay
ton.
has a couple because there's a Alvaro's Adventure or Alvaro. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but he has some that go out of Monterey Bay, and I think there's like another company out of
So
Monterey
there's
Bay
some that
too.
go to Monterey, and then, like I said, I thought I heard of some going out more Southern California.
Yeah, I think West Coast is really
And
like
then there's
the
Lake
hot spot.
Michigan.
Yeah, the unknown pelagics.
Yeah. So you think it was a success overall?
I think so. Like I'm glad we went and experienced it and got to, you know, bird in two states and visit some hot spots. So
Yeah.
it was definitely a memorable trip for sure.
Sounds like it. Mostly because of the weather and
And
Nathaniel losing
you
his
can watch the
glasses.
video now that you haven't
I'm
watched
gonna do that right
yet.
when we're done here, actually, and see what it
There's
was like.
a hilarious clip where I'm talking about Nathaniel losing his glasses and it pans to him and he just looks depressed, like he doesn't have his glasses. And then it does kind of like an office style zoom onto like the holes in the side of the boat. Like it's like these are the culprits.
Yeah. Classic Nathaniel. We gotta watch out for him anytime he goes on vacation. We have to make sure he bolsters his immune system ahead of time. Make sure that
He didn't get
anything that he
sick
can
this
lose is
time.
tied to him.
What was it? Oh yeah. Yeah, he didn't get sick this time though, so that's good.
At least there's that. He could have gotten seasick and said he just passed out.
Yeah. Oh, also wanted to mention that we launched a couple communities. There's a Facebook group called Badgerland Birding Community, and we also launched a Discord that we're testing out. So, there's a video up on our main channel that says talks about both communities, and there's links there if you want to join them.
Yeah, they're kind of popping off. A lot of people in there communicating with each other.
Yeah. So we're curious to see how those grow and kind of the difference between the two of them. And you know, have excited to have people in those groups. Anything else about pelagic trips or any questions you had?
I'm sure I'll come up with some later, but I'm just actually really excited to go watch the video now. Get the
Yeah, I feel
sneak
like if
peek
you
before
listen to the
everyone else.
podcast, you gotta then watch the video later on because I feel like you can see a lot of the things that's talked about in it. I tried to capture, you know, the bounce of the boat and the waves, but it really doesn't translate very well.
Well, that's what I did not like about the Pelagic we were on is I was trying to take videos and it was so frustrating because you're going up and down, the waves are going up and down, so the
Hmm.
birds are moving up and down. So it's like you'll get in the frame for a second and it'll just get yanked out of the frame. It's not even like, oh, if I'm still enough, I can do this.
Or you
You
just
have
fall
no
over.
choice. I didn't do that.
I did when
Did
I
you
would,
actually?
yeah, you'd stand up and the like seat like below you would hit your legs and then you'd sit back down basically and then you'd stand
I'm
up
back down
again.
again. It was just
Um,
tough, very
yeah,
tough.
and you can't really stabilize the videos either because it's so like I have videos in there that it's just that's how it is. It's like
Yeah, there's
shaky,
nothing you
but
can do about it other than
no,
like
what I
take a
did do is I
screenshot.
slowed down some clips.
Oh.
Like I have a slow-mo of the gannets plunge diving, and
I think
that's
it's
pretty
that
cool.
slow-mo of it Puffin or something going like boo boo.
There's a slow-mo of a dovekey flapping its wings, which looked pretty cool.
Neat.
So
I'm excited to see those birds because I've never seen a dovekey or a
they
razorbill
were adorable.
or an out of season Atlantic puffin.
Yeah, the dovekeys were so cute. Like you just wanted to like scoop them up and take them with. But sometimes they do move in closer, but I think it's normally when they're not doing as hot, which is too bad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let us know your experience with pelagic trips in the comments below. Very curious. And I, of course, want to know all the information about the best ones to go on so I can try out every pelagic in the United States.
Hashtag every pelagic.
And thanks to everyone for watching and listening to this episode of the Badgerland Birding Podcast.